Inside Out is one of the best Pixar franchises, and one of the most emotionally impactful. Gee, I wonder why that could be. The stories focus on emotions, psychological developments, and growing up in general, make them ripe for all sorts of theories. So today we're talking about the best theories we could find, and some of the most bizarre and borderline crazy.
Okay, not what I had in mind.
Either way, they're all entertaining. Surprise, the invisible emotion. Our first theory can be traced back to a fun fact. The movie's directors revealed that in earlier concepts for the sequel, there would have been as many as 27 emotions. Some of the deleted ones were guilt, shame, greed, and my personal favorite, Schadenfreude, which is basically pleasure at someone else's expense. We'll talk about Riley's theoretical sadism later, but for now, we have to mention the hidden sixth member of the original roster, Surprise. This post from Lapis Lazuli is the best on Reddit. Points out that Inside Out's cast was based on Paul Ekman's theory of emotions. Dr. Ekman affirms that the 6 most prominent emotions in the human mind are anger, disgust, enjoyment, fear, sadness, and surprise. Now, it wouldn't have been too hard to add Surprise into the mix, even as a recurring joke character. So why don't we ever see them? Well, the aforementioned Reddit post poses the idea that Surprise is not a character, but the console's default setting. Their reasoning is that the purpose of Surprise is to alert us to new things, and one major purpose of the console is to show the emotions new things. There's a reason that the other emotions are able to experience surprise at both things Riley experiences, like talking to a boy, or things that happen inside her mind, like anxiety's arrival. To offer an alternate explanation though, let me theorize that Surprise is a character. They just happen to be an invisible one. If Surprise was a character in the movie, why would you be surprised to see them? Joy has to be there when Riley's happy, sadness has to be there when she's sad, so on and so forth. But if Surprise showed up when Riley was surprised, it would be all too predictable. Because whenever Riley shows any surprise, it wouldn't be a surprise when Surprise showed up. That's the explanation we'll go with for now anyway. I find it really impressive that the movie managed to make a character with no dialogue or character design so interesting. The hierarchy of emotions. The next one is a little more visible. You'll just need to make a little observation. Notice how the main emotion is different for Riley's parents than Riley herself. For instance, in her mom's mind, sadness seems to be in charge, whereas her father's leader is none other than anger. This has led fans to a lot, and I mean a lot of speculation about how the core emotions work.
What? What is it, woman? What?
Especially since Riley's dad doesn't seem particularly angry, nor does her mother seem particularly sad. So why are they in the lead, so to speak? Well, let's look closer. In both Riley's mother's and her father's minds, we see some curtains in the background, not too far off, almost as if to keep them away from the main console. They're in similar spots to Anxiety's relaxation space at the end of the sequel, which suggests that these curtained-off areas represent emotions that Riley's parents have learned to manage better. Our best guess then is that the core emotion is whichever one its user uses most prominently in decision-making. Think about it, just because Riley's dad isn't constantly punching through drywall and screaming doesn't mean that he's not struggling with some deep-rooted anger issues. Nor does her mother doing stuff other than crying mean she doesn't struggle with depression. And it's not like these emotions don't have their good points. Sadness yields compassion, and anger yields protectiveness and a sense of justice. Similarly, joy yields an unapologetic search for happiness in life. I mean, joy is the one who ultimately talks anxiety down at the end of the movie. Maybe if we ever get a third movie, we'll see more of how the mind works in this universe, but for right now, we've still got plenty to speculate about. Emotions and identity. Another interesting observation comes from the simple fact that Riley's emotions are a mix of male and female. Every other character whose headquarters we see has a roster of emotions all sharing the same gender, which led many to speculate. Some corners of the internet believe that this suggests that Riley is actually trans, which is honestly a huge leap. But even if that is far-fetched, it is still weird that her emotions are the only ones who don't share one gender. Note how Riley's parents' emotions share some of their facial and hair features. We would go with the theory that kids have a more diverse group solely on the basis of being kids, but since we later see Jordan's headquarters full of guys with similar outfits, that wouldn't really line up either. It's more likely that the emotions grow with their user and that they gain those unique traits when they start to figure out their own identity. I mean, one of the major conflicts in Inside Out 2 is Riley's struggle to figure out who she wants to be and how she's going to handle making new friends at a school far away from her old ones. And maybe the split of genders and the emotions is just because she's more of a tomboy. People grow and learn who they are at different rates after all. Maybe all these guys need are some hockey helmets and boom, you've got Riley's personalized set of emotions. Fear, the unintentional villain. Now we're actually getting into the weirder stuff, and what better way to start than the good old nice character is actually evil kind of theory. Hourglass Dolphin on Reddit pitches this sort of theory about our main man Fear, stating that the new emotions in Inside Out 2 are corrupted by fear. This theory starts out with the color theory, which is exactly what it sounds like. If you add purple to each of the other emotions' colors, you'll get a result somewhat similar to the colors of the newbie. But okay, that is a bit of a stretch. What's not a stretch is the purpose of said emotions. What is anxiety? The fear of what could happen. What is envy? The fear of missing out on what others experience. What is embarrassment? The feeling of, well, embarrassment, something basically everybody fears. And what is ennui? Well, actually, I've got nothing for connecting that one. I guess fear can keep you from doing stuff, hence ennui just sitting around most of the time. In any case, since fear ended up helping the others take down anxiety, despite his admiration of her, there's no way he corrupted Riley's mind, not on purpose anyway. But imagining fear as a secret villain is kind of hilarious, so kudos to the theorist for that regardless. Bong is a Monsters Inc. monster. It wouldn't be an Inside Out theory video without at least one Pixar crossover theory. There are a lot of these, but here's the one we found most intriguing. In a video where some of the voice cast debunks and occasionally just bunks theories from fans about the Inside Out movies, one that stands out is from @JustTheNobodies at TikTok, stating that Bong is actually a monster from Monsters Inc., who visited Riley in her earlier years, and the memory of him stuck around her. Now, while Amy Poehler debunked it, both Fear and Anger's voice actors actually turned out to like this theory quite a bit.
I don't want to debunk that. I like that theory.
And honestly, we do too. Sure, there's hardly anything monstrous about Bong, but recall how Monsters Inc. ends for a moment. Instead of scaring children to get their scream energy, Mike and Sully come up with a solution to make kids laugh instead. Nothing about Bong is even remotely scary, but it doesn't have to be for this theory to be plausible. With an outfit and design like that, there's nothing this guy would be better at than making little kids laugh. And a memory like that would be prime material for an imaginary friend. It's not a theory that has any concrete evidence, but it is a cute, fun one. And that's enough for us to support it. Do the emotions have emotions? Okay, enough wholesome stuff now.
All right, make a show of force. I don't want to have to put the foot down.
Now it's time to get to our good old-fashioned overanalyzing. Anxiety would be proud. Now, one thing that always stuck out to me in these movies is that the emotions aren't just one-note characters. It's obvious why, of course. Sadness is as important as joy. Every emotion has its place and purpose, so on and so forth. But there's one particular scene from the sequel that sticks out, in which Joy loses her temper with the other emotions complaining. Here, she shows some pretty intense anger. Later on, she loses hope about making it back to headquarters, showing sadness and despair. So, Joy can experience anger and sadness, which are basically her opposites. How can this be if Joy is the embodiment of, well, joy? Simple, the emotions have emotions. When Joy is sad, her sadness takes over. When she's angry, her anger takes over. Now granted, since Joy is joy, her own emotion of joy is probably the strongest, and the others are existent only in much smaller quantities. So how far does this chain of command go? Here's our theory. Riley has 5 main emotions, each of which has equal size and influence, maybe a slight exception for Joy. Since Joy's primary emotion is joy, we can assume her headquarters is mostly controlled by Joy, with the others on standby for emergency use only. When Joy is at the control panel, she can only use her joy, but outside of that, she's free to vent and show her emotions. It's the same for other emotions. We see sadness express occasional happiness, anger showcases pity and compassion for Joy in some scenes, and disgust seems joyful at meeting envy for the first time. Of course, that begs the question of how far this chain of command goes. Do the emotions' own emotions have their own emotions? And do those emotions have their own emotions? We could keep going on forever, but our final couple theories are a bit more intriguing. The emotions are mind-controlling bacteria. Okay, I'm gonna try really hard not to laugh while explaining this one. On the much less wholesome end of the spectrum, we now move from one TikTok source theory to another. Be Amazed Media observes that scientific research concludes that certain bacteria in the brain can influence emotions. So, and this is the exact wording the theorist uses, what if the creatures in Riley's head are actually some kind of mind-controlling bacteria? Okay, so here's my rule with cartoon conspiracy theories. If I can easily read it in the voice of Dale Gribble from King of the Hill, it's probably absolute nonsense.
That makes a lot of sense. A lot of nonsense.
This is definitely the funniest theory we've seen today, though, even if it's completely unintentional. It's just absurd. I mean, if you're gonna theorize about this sort of thing, go big or go home, right? Brainwashing. But worry not, our lovely crew is more than happy to explain our own take on the inside-out brainwashing theory. So, when anxiety forces the original emotions to be bottled up, they're taken to a huge facility full of memories that have been locked up. There's a whole police force guarding this maximum security prison inside of this 13-year-old child's mind. Let that sink in. Everything from embarrassing childhood crushes to the fact that she still enjoys kids' cartoons is locked up in here. You know what's the most weird part of this whole area, though? The Deep Dark Secret was the most mysterious character in this category, and his secret in question turned out to just be Riley burning a hole in a rug. And that was just in one cell, so, like, how many of these deep dark secrets does Riley have? Sure, it could just be a fun joke, but could this deep dark secret just be one of many? Is he merely a decoy, a red herring of sorts to distract us from Riley's truly dark secrets? Yeah, it might be all coming together. Riley's emotions are all pretty generic looking compared to the others, which is more than likely a result of her being a kid who's still figuring herself out. But there's a remote possibility that it isn't all that simple. You see, every other character whose headquarters we see has emotions that look like an altered version of hers. In other words, every character's emotions are based on Riley's. Same faces, same colors, same body types, etc. And who are all the characters whose emotions we see? People connected to Riley. Friends, parents, even first crushes. Maybe the brain bacteria theory wasn't as crazy as we thought. I ask you this then, what if Riley is slowly trying to take over the world with her emotions? Think about it, Riley's parents' emotions just look like hers, but with mustaches or glasses or other accessories. The same goes for her friends' emotions. If the emotions are supposed to represent who the character is inside, then why are literally everyone's emotions but Riley's given some unique trait? Because Riley is using her mind control powers to influence the people around her. Her parents sympathize with her friends tell her the truth about switching schools, her crush has an internal breakdown at the mere sight of his first love. She's going to make every person's emotions look exactly like hers, so that one day there will be a hive mind of Riley's to bring about Rileygeddon, an event which will reshape the world to suit her own visions for it. Of course, this theory is probably just absurd nonsense, but maybe that's exactly what Riley wants us to think.